What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are finally back with some college football preview and picks. As always, Ty's coming back for his fourth year on the channel. But before we get into it, hit that subscribe button down below to be informed on all things college football. Let's get into it. We're going to start a new segment this year. We're going to do our locks of the week. Obviously, we're in the betting world nowadays. And, obviously we're young enough, so we like to gamble. We are old enough to gamble, but still in that young enough where we love to gamble. And I'm going with some interesting picks here. Week one, obviously, it's always tough because it's week one. We don't know what these teams got. We can look on paper and predict, but it's always tough till you see a physical product on the field. I'm going UNC Minnesota under 50 and a half. I just think both those teams lost a lot last year. Minnesota lost their lead rusher to the NFL. UNC obviously lost Drake May to the NFL and some other top talent with Tez Walker. So I think that could be an under and really an ugly, 20 to 10 kind of game. North Dakota State, Colorado over. Deion Sanders and his two sons, and obviously Travis Hunter, are going to put up a lot of points, but I don't think that defense is still as good as people think for Colorado. And I think they're going to put up at least, I would say at least 21. I think they at least score three, but I think Colorado runs it up late. That's why that over would hit. I mean, Georgia Clemson, I don't even think we need to talk about that spread. I think Georgia's going to absolutely destroy Clemson. I'd probably even still take that spread if it was 20 and a half. That's how confident I am in Georgia this year. They got a lot to prove after last year's college football playoff snub, and what better way to face Clemson on prime time and just, destroy them. West Virginia, I'm taking the spread against Penn State. I think at home in a very hostile environment, Penn State has to go in there week one, and we know how Penn State fares under James Franklin in big games. If you want to call this a big game, it's not a ranked matchup, but it is a big game week one. And James Franklin just escapes or does not show up. At least his team does not. So I think that 8 is a very enticing number. The Notre Dame Texas A&M under, I like that as well because if Notre Dame goes in there and struggles, they're not going to score more than 2 touchdowns at most. That's just how Notre Dame rolls. They either really struggle or they're going to go in there and put up 30. And you'll see later why I'm taking this under. And then the LSU 4.5 versus USC. I think LSU, they have a better put together team this year than USC does. And obviously Lincoln Riley losing Caleb Williams. And they have I think it's Miller Moss. Is it Miller Moses? Something like that is the quarterback now for Caleb Williams. I can't remember. But he was the freshman last year that put up, I think, 5 touchdowns in the bowl game for USC. So there is some hope there, but I just think LSU has too much returning talent here, and I think they take care of business.
All right, better's riding with me. I got a lot of experience. I gamble about twice a year at a casino.
Mhm.
So definitely a guy you're going to want to ride with. I got North Carolina to start us off, -1.5. The line has shifted a lot toward them. I am pretty low on Minnesota this year. It's more about them. I think they're going to be like in the 3-9, 4-8 range this year. I don't think they'll be good at all. So give me North Carolina. Stanford getting a lot of points at home against TCU. Just wipe your memory of 2022 TCU. Get it out of your head because they are gone. They are nowhere near that team anymore. So Stanford getting all those points, they'll cover at home. And then Penn State. I think Penn State is probably going to win this game, but they're going to do it their way. And I don't think West Virginia is going to light anyone up on offense this year. So I see this game going under 51.5 was pretty high to me. I thought it'd be a lot lower than that. Give me Florida. So Florida and Notre Dame, I think they're both going to win outright. So if you want to take the money line, be my guest. But I think they both cover. I think Notre Dame, Texas A&M's going to be good eventually under Mike Elko. They'll be good fast. But Notre Dame's a better team right now. So I think they'll win. And, who can trust Miami at this point? They're ranked high every year, and then they suck. So could they be good this year? Yeah, I got to see it first. So I'm taking Florida. And then not much to say about this Northwestern spread, but I mean, you're only giving 3 points to a mid-level MAC team on your home field. First game on their Lakeside Stadium. So give me Northwestern -3.
And then we're going to jump into it. Technically, tonight's game, when you're going to see this video, you got UNC and Minnesota, and obviously, I'm going with the Golden Gophers at home. I think if this game was in North Carolina, I'm probably going with the Tar Heels. It's just one of those games that I think the home team gets the win because it's week one. Now, if these teams played in week three, week four, I'd probably go with the favorite in North Carolina here. But, week one, you see some crazy things happen in week one and some upsets happen just because of the teams playing at home.
Yeah, I just think North Carolina, they don't have Drake May anymore, but they still have a lot of good skill players on offense. And I have a lot of question marks about the quarterback position for Minnesota. They had Callie McManus last year, who was not good and then transferred out. So if he won the starting job, what do you have left? So I'm taking North Carolina. They're just going to outscore Minnesota.
And then also, I'm sure this is what everyone's going to be watching instead of that game. Just because of Deion Sanders and what he's got on the field this year, probably the last year of Shador and Travis Hunter together, more than likely. And just those two names is all you need to know for this Colorado pick. I don't think that it should be much of a contest. I know that North Dakota State's really good as an FCS team, but if they can throw the ball how they want, I just think it's going to be a field day for Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado probably has the best, I don't know, 15, 20 athletes on the field in this game. So I think that's going to be the difference. The Bison are an FCS dynasty, but I think Colorado at home is still going to get this win here.
Then moving over to Friday night, you got FAU, Michigan State, and this Michigan State line was at 9.5, I think 2 weeks ago. Now it's jumped all the way up to 14, and I think that's just the confidence that people are finally starting to realize in this Michigan State team. And being a Michigan fan, I think honestly you can say that this Michigan State team has looked probably the best it's been since 2021. Aiden Childs coming in, obviously he is a huge get because that's what they've been needing is a big quarterback. And I think we're going to see that on display here in week one.
Yeah, I don't know if Michigan State is a ton better than they were last year, but they definitely improved a ton at the quarterback position and head coach. I mean, I think they're going to be a much better coach this year. So I don't think they're going to shoot themselves in the foot like they have the past few years. So I think they'll get it done here at home.
And also, after that game, you're going to want to stay up to watch some good football. I think both of us can agree here. TCU, Stanford, I know you mentioned that, it's not the 2022 TCU team, but give TCU some credit. They definitely had a down year last year with some high expectations coming off that championship run. And I think this is a good case for them to bounce back here, go on the road. I know you're favored, but go on the road to Stanford, a newly team in the ACC, and just I think throttle them. I think if you can go in there and beat them by 17, I think people are going to start to recognize that maybe this isn't the same team we saw last year.
Yeah, I know I said I was really confident in Stanford covering, but I do think TCU is still going to win. I didn't mention this with my locks, but Stanford also not very good at football. So I think TCU will get the win on the road. But like I said, 9.5 is a lot of points. So it's going to be, we'll say TCU by 3 in this one.
Then moving over to Saturday, obviously you already know who I got because of our locks. I'm going with Georgia. I think Carson Beck's going to overpower Clemson's defense. And, Cade Klubnik was shaky at times last year, resulting in Clemson, going 9-3. And if we see any shakiness here, Georgia's top defense is going to be all over it. And don't forget these teams met just a few years ago, and it was a 10-3 final score and Georgia won on a pick six. And I think since that moment, Clemson hasn't recovered. They haven't been the same team these last few years. And since that moment, Clemson, I think 9-3 was their best record last year, and I think 2 years ago. So they've kind of not been irrelevant, but haven't been that same team that we've seen pre-COVID. And I think if they want to, get back to those ways, they got to at least make this a respectable game.
Yeah, but they won't. I mean, Clemson's a good team this year. Like you said, 9-3 the last few years, probably that again this year in that range. But Georgia, they might be better than them at every position on the field, pretty close. So I think Georgia wins pretty easily. And I'll probably say they cover as well.
And then also, when that game becomes a blowout in the fourth quarter, you're probably going to want to tune into this one because this is probably going to be a one-score game going into the new 2-minute warning. Don't forget about that this year, the 2-minute warnings. I think Penn State's still going to walk away with this one. I mean, I took West Virginia +8. I think it's going to be a late field goal that gets Penn State over the edge, or they get a stop and just bleed the clock out. And I think that's Penn State football. Like you said earlier, Penn State football, take the under. And if Penn State does win this game, it's going to be a 21-17, 20-13 kind of game. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'd say the one knock on Penn State over the years is they go 10-2, but they never beat Michigan or Ohio State. But the other side is that they don't get upset by teams that they're better than. West Virginia's solid, but Penn State, your running game and your defense usually travel with you on the road, and that's what Penn State has. They have a really good defense this year, and like seemingly every year, a loaded running back room. So I think they'll use that. Maybe this will be, like you said, 3 point game somewhere in there, but I still think Penn State just gets the job done like they usually do.
And at 2 o'clock, you're probably not going to watch this one because you got to pay extra. We love that as football fans. South Dakota State, Oklahoma State. And, you and I were both kind of surprised that Oklahoma State's only favored by 9 in this game. Probably a top three, maybe even best running back in college football, and Ollie Gordon. Still got Alan Bowman going on to his 17th year is what it feels like. But, Oklahoma State, I think, is going to be a powerhouse this year. They do got a tough schedule in the Big 12, but it's early on. And I think what better way to start against one of the top FCS teams to really solidify yourself that, you are going to be a good team this year. So give me the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I almost threw this in the locks. I would stay away from this spread. It almost seems too easy to the point where Vegas knows something. They're only given 9 points. Like you said, maybe the best running back in the country against an FCS defense. So if it seems like a layup, that's almost a sign to stay away from it in my eyes. I still think Oklahoma State wins fairly comfortably, but I don't know. I would stay away from that line in this game.
Then at 3:30, you got a big one for the state of Florida, Miami and Florida. And I got to go with Miami. I'm kind of riding the hype train this year, not because of, everything that's happened but I just am a big fan of Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward has been great at Washington State. Now he goes to a program where he's finally going to get some recognition because one, he's at Miami, and two, he's playing on Eastern Standard Time, not on West Coast time. West Coast time, all of us on the Eastern time zone, we're all sleeping by 10:30 start times when those games are on. So I think he's going to finally get some recognition that he deserves. And I don't even know if they cover this spread. If we're going to be honest, the 2.5, it's going to be a good game. It's going to come down to the last possession. And if Miami can somehow, some way escape this game, then I think you might have a different opinion on Miami going into, the rest of the year. And I'm sure a lot of the media will as well.
Yeah, I think this is a huge game for both of these programs. Two fan bases that are kind of losing patience. Miami seems like they're ranked, top 15 every year to start the year, and they never stay up there. And for Florida, Billy Napier, he's probably can this year if they don't win at least, I don't know, 7 or 8 games at a minimum. So a really big game for both of these teams to kind of set the tone for the season. But Cam Ward, like you said, really big get for Miami, but they don't have to go to the Swamp in the Pac-12. They got some tough stadiums, but they don't go to the Swamp. So I think Florida, the home field advantage is going to be big in this one, and they pull out a close win at home.
And then after that game, I'm sure you're going to be watching this one. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. And man, I think this game could decide seasons for both these teams. Obviously, Notre Dame has it a lot easier than Texas A&M does down the road. But Texas A&M being in the SEC and what they added this year, it just gets tougher for them. So that means you got to win these big games out of conference. Big games, I guess one big game out of conference, because you need as many wins as you can to stay alive in that college football playoff race nowadays. And I think they're going to get it here. I think I'm just concerned about how Riley Leonard's going to play. I know he had that ankle injury late last year. I know he's fully healthy now, but I'm sure now that he's going to be in some game action, I'm sure he's going to think about it maybe early on, because that's just human nature thinking about those kind of things. But Texas A&M, home of the 12th man, Notre Dame in big games, the track record just isn't there. As much as I want to take Notre Dame, I'm just going with Texas A&M.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this game going either way. I think Notre Dame is, in my eyes, the better team. I don't have a lot of doubt about that. But I mean, this is about as tough of an environment as you can get. Kyle Field at night, first game of the year. So it's going to be tough. But I just think Texas A&M is about 1 year away from being really good. Once Mike Elko gets his recruits in there next year, I think they'll be really good. But right now, Notre Dame is just a little too good to drop this game on the road.
And then obviously we're going to be watching this one as well. Both being Michigan fans. Obviously we're taking Michigan here. Big storyline, changes. That's all you need to know. Lots and lots of changes from this Michigan team. And like you said about that TCU team, the 2022 team, kind of the same thing here for Michigan. Obviously, Michigan won it all last year. Who are you getting back? Donovan Edwards, Will Johnson, Mason Graham. I think those are your three big guys that everybody knows. Then after that, if you're not a true Michigan fan, you really don't know who else is left on this roster. And I think it is going to be a little concerning maybe in the first half there. So if you're looking to bet on Fresno State, probably take that first half spread because I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan gets out to a slow start here. But I do think Michigan will win this game pretty convincingly.
Yeah, another thing about this game is Fresno State is actually a very good group of five team this year. They're not exactly a layup first game opponent, unfortunately. But yeah, like you said, Michigan has a lot of changes this year. It's all going to come down to their passing game. Obviously, Alex Orji, probably the starter, a lot of young wide receivers. So, can they get it done? That'll be the difference. But I'm a little nervous for this game just because I don't know what to expect. But the defense for Michigan, even if they have no passing game, they'll still get the win just by leaning on their defense. So they'll come out with a win here.
And then moving on to Sunday night, because no NFL yet. You got USC and LSU, and I think Ty, this is one of those spread and picks that's a layup going with LSU here. So maybe stay away from that spread. I know I'm taking the spread, the 4.5 that you saw earlier, but LSU, I just think that they're due to have one of those really good years in the SEC. It happens every 3 or 4 years for LSU. They just go 10-2, 11-1, maybe go to an SEC championship game or fall just short. And Brian Kelly's first year, he got him to the SEC championship. Obviously didn't go the way he wanted, but if he can do it in his first year, I think in his third year now with a stable offense and defense, I think this is the time where LSU could really make that push and be one of the better SEC teams.
Yeah, I was actually kind of leaning the other way. I was on the fence just about who was going to win this game. Really wanted to pull the trigger on USC. Remember last year, Caleb Williams sat out the bowl game. Everyone thought they were just going to kind of lay down and lose that game. And then this guy, Miller Moss, shows up, throws 5 touchdowns, and they light it up in the game.
Mhm.
So I was tempted to pick them, but, USC going against the SEC usually doesn't end well for them in the last decade or so. So I think that'll continue. And like you said, big year for LSU, extremely loaded conference. So they really need to win this game, and I think they will.
But that's gonna be it for our week one preview and picks. Check back next week to see how we did on all of these games. And obviously we'll be breaking down some more games next week, especially that Texas Michigan game. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.